Is B95 safe for your classic Mercedes? If you're watching this and you're wondering what B95 is, it's not some weird additive that some old mechanic came up with 50 years ago and then sold to Pennzoil, and then they started selling it at Harbor Freight recently and your mechanic says you should use it. B95 is 95% biodiesel. It's pretty close to pure biodiesel. And one of the most interesting things I've found recently is that the state of California is trying to push for 100% renewable diesel fuel. And we're going to talk about why, for the most part, B95 is actually a pretty good solution to a fossil fuels problem, and what some things might be that you have to do to prepare your car for it. And last but not least, where you could actually get biodiesel safe parts, which is kind of a trick question. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about what B95 is and what it isn't. B95 is not vegetable oil. It's ultra refined plant seed oil or plant oil. It's not just used vegetable oil. And B95 is generally harvested from things like soybeans or algae. Algae is a big one, and anything really that makes an oil can produce ultimately a biodiesel product. It's just that the manufacturing product, the projected amount of work for making biodiesel out of a large amount of plant seed oil is can really be intimidating. It is a lot of work, but just like we learned how to refine motor oil from crude petroleum and eventually gasoline from crude petroleum, there is a lot of innovation being made in this area. Now, is B95 safe for your classic Mercedes? The short answer is yes, and it's safe for two reasons. It lubricates better than diesel fuel, and I know it doesn't have as many BTUs, like you will see about a 10 to 15% drop in fuel economy, but for the most part, it is safe for the injection pump assemblies and it's safe for injectors. I'm not sure about modern CDI engines. I don't know what the long-term side effects, but I've heard it's okay there. But if you have a mechanical injection pump on your classic Mercedes, it should be fine given that you replace certain parts. Now, what are these parts? Well, the first part that comes to mind are the fuel hoses, the fuel supply and return hoses. If you have an OM 601 through 606 engine, the thermostat O-ring and the delivery valve O-rings. If you have a European market 616 or 617 non-turbo diesel, the delivery valve O-rings are also suspect. The fuel tank itself will probably get cleaned out within the next 1,000 to 2,000 miles, so you'll be changing a lot of fuel filters, and you should probably change your fuel filter O-rings. But once this process is done and all the crud sort of comes out, your car will eventually settle into a routine with the biodiesel. It's just you'd better, if you have one of these cars and you don't know how to do fuel filters, you better learn, because you're going to be doing it a lot and in some weird places at some strange times. Now, one of the things that gets thrown around a lot is that you have to have Viton instead of natural rubber. And I'm here to tell you today that you don't need to buy a bunch of generic red Viton hose to make your Mercedes biodiesel proof. Any genuine Mercedes part that is sold for your classic Mercedes diesel, any fuel hose, any O-ring, any fuel injector return hose, is not old natural rubber, subpar rubber like CRP sells. It is 100% high quality synthetic rubber, and it is 100% biodiesel safe. So that means that if I need to update my 85 300D, it's as simple as me ordering a meter of 7.5 millimeter fuel hose, ordering the fuel supply hose, the injector return hose, the fuel filter O-rings, maybe updating the primer pump if it hasn't been done, and that's that. The car is biodiesel safe and ready. And on an OM 616 or 617 engine, there really aren't that many hoses involved. The only special hose is the cigar hose and the supply hose underneath the car. Everything else is pretty much bulk rubber, and it should only take a few hours to do that job once you manage to get your tank drained. Now, I see a lot of people also talking about or discussing whether biodiesel could cause lubrication, combustion, or carbon formation issues within their engines. I think that adding a cetane booster might be a good idea, like power service, just to see how your engine does. And it is true that biodiesel can produce more carbon than normal diesel fuel. It's for that reason that I recommend a cetane booster occasionally, maybe not all the time, but also you need to make sure that your injectors are atomizing the fuel right, because the main thing that stops carbon formation is perfect atomization. Usually I tell people that if you take your old nozzles and you run them through an ultrasonic cleaner and reassemble them, they'll be just fine. So all this talk about, oh, I need new nozzles and this and that, most of the time they're not actually worn out. They just need to be ultrasonically cleaned and they'll actually work okay. The last thing is biodiesel and cold temperatures. Biodiesel congeals at a much lower temperature than regular diesel. So if you're in a very cold climate where it gets below 40 degrees, you need to add some kind of winterization additive to make sure it doesn't congeal and stop the car from running. And you'll need more of it than you would with standard diesel. But otherwise, I'm here to tell you today that B95 is a safe fuel for your older 300D or 240D or even your more modern E300 diesel. Probably one of the few actual real alternative fuels that is on the horizon that is a real viable alternative to a fossil fuel is biodiesel. So have no fear about supporting the product. There's nothing wrong with it, and it'll probably keep our cars here a lot longer than any of us thought 10 years ago. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Tap the bell for notifications, and don't run waste vegetable oil in your Mercedes. Don't get that idea, okay? Talk to you later.